Getting enough vitamin D and omega-3 from food is doable, but it rarely happens by accident. Vitamin D helps your bones stay strong and your immune system stay active, while omega-3 support heart and brain health. In this video, we dive into which foods count, how much you'd need, and how cooking and how you eat them changes what your body actually uses. Reality check on servings you can work with. For vitamin D, a 3-4 ounce serving of oily fish can deliver roughly 450 to 600 IU. Fortified dairy or plant milks add about 100 IU per cup. Eggs contribute about 40-50 IU each. Mushrooms exposed to light can boost vitamin D too, though amounts vary. For omega-3s, 3 ounces of fatty fish often supplies about 601 mg of EPA plus DHA. If you rely on plant sources, flaxseed gives about 2-3 grams of ALA per tablespoon, but your body only converts a small portion of ALA into EPA and DHA. Bioavailability and prep matter. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, so eating it with a bit of fat helps absorption. Omega-3s stay freshest and best absorbed when not heavily oxidized, so gentle cooking and proper storage matter. Cooking methods can tweak the amounts you actually get, with fish oil and fatty foods being more sensitive to heat and light. Safety notes you'll want to hear. The general upper limit for vitamin D is around 40 IU per day for adults. Very high doses of omega-3s can affect bleeding, especially if you're on certain medications. If you have any medical conditions, are pregnant, or take daily medications, it's wise to check in with a pro before making big changes. When to talk to a professional. If you have little sun exposure, follow strict dietary restrictions, have absorption problems, or are considering high-dose supplements to try to meet targets, a dietitian or doctor can tailor a plan for you. Decision guide. Can you get enough from food alone? Yes, if you regularly eat 2 servings of fatty fish per week, about 3-4 ounces each, plus a couple of fortified dairy or plant milks and some eggs or fortified mushrooms. No, if you rarely eat these foods or have absorption or health concerns, then seek guidance to decide whether adjustments or supplements are right. Why vitamin D and omega-3 are needed. A quick overview of immunity, bones, and the brain. Vitamin D supports immune defenses by guiding how immune cells respond to pathogens and by helping modulate the balance between inflammation and healing. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA, also play a role in the immune system by shaping how inflammatory signals are produced and by supporting the health of immune cells. For bones, vitamin D helps raise calcium absorption in the gut and works with minerals to build and maintain bone mineral density. The brain contains vitamin D receptors, and DHA, a major omega-3 in brain cell membranes, contributes to membrane fluidity and nerve signaling. In simple terms, both nutrients help your body defend itself, keep your bones sturdy, and support the brain's everyday work and resilience. A typical 3-ounce serving of fatty fish can provide roughly 400 to 700 IU of vitamin D and about 500 mg of EPA and DHA combined, depending on the species and how it's prepared. Plant foods give omega-3 as ALA, which the body converts only sporadically to EPA and DHA, so relying on plants alone often yields lower levels of the long-chain forms. 2 servings per week of fatty fish are a common target in many dietary guidelines, with more on days when you don't get fortified foods. For vitamin D, fortified foods such as certain dairy products, plant milks, and cereals can add to intake, but the actual vitamin D content varies by product. In addition, sun exposure contributes a portion of vitamin D for many people, though this depends on latitude, skin exposure, and season. Overall, you can cover some of the needs with food, but the amount from meals alone often falls short for everyone. Bioavailability hinges on fat in the meal because vitamin D is fat-soluble, so it's better absorbed with some dietary fat. Omega-3s are also better absorbed when eaten with fat, and heat can alter delicate fats, so cooking methods matter. Grilling or baking fatty fish tends to preserve much of the EPA and DHA, while excessive high-heat frying can erode some of their amounts. Algae-based sources of DHA can be a direct plant-friendly alternative, though amounts vary by product. Store and handle fatty fish properly to minimize oxidation, which can affect taste and nutrient stability. On the preparation side, raw or minimally processed sources usually retain more omega-3s, but foods must be handled safely. Safety boundaries and practical checks help with planning. Vitamin D has a widely discussed upper limit around 40 IU per day for adults. Consistently higher intakes can raise blood calcium and other risks, so moderation matters. Omega-3 intake can be healthy at common dietary levels, but very high supplemental doses, generally around several grams per day, can affect bleeding risk and interact with anticoagulants. People with kidney disease, certain heart conditions, or on specific medications should check with a professional before high-dose supplementation. If you're pregnant, nursing, or managing health conditions, professional guidance is especially important. If you avoid fish or fortified foods, or you follow a vegan or strict vegetarian pattern, a professional can help tailor a plan that fits your needs and safety limits. Yes or no? Can you meet vitamin D and omega-3 needs from food alone? Yes, if you regularly eat fatty fish and fortified products. No, if your diet rarely includes these and you may need guidance on supplements. Best food sources: fatty fish, eggs, liver, and fortified foods. Fatty fish stand out as the richest natural source of both vitamin D and long-chain omega-3 fats in a single package. A common serving, about 3 ounces or 85 grams, of cooked salmon provides roughly 450 IU of vitamin D and around 1.0–1.5 grams of EPA and DHA combined. The fats they carry help your body absorb the vitamin D, and the omega-3s contribute to heart and brain health in everyday meals. Egg yolks contribute small but meaningful amounts of vitamin D, and hens fed certain diets can pass along more omega-3s. One large egg can carry about 40–50 IU of vitamin D, primarily in the yolk. Omega-3 content varies widely. Standard eggs have modest amounts, while omega-3 enriched eggs can bring roughly 0.3–0.7 grams of total omega-3s per egg. Liver is a nutrient powerhouse for many things, but it isn't a big player for vitamin D or omega-3s. A 100-gram serving of beef liver has only trace amounts of vitamin D, often in the single-digit IU range, and omega-3s are present at very low levels compared with fatty fish. That makes liver a useful source for iron and vitamin A and other nutrients, but not a reliable source for D and omega-3. Fortified foods can help fill gaps when natural sources fall short. Milk and some plant milks are commonly fortified with around 100 IU of vitamin D per cup, and breakfast cereals can also carry added vitamin D. Omega-3 fortification exists in a growing number of products too, sometimes using algae-based DHA. Amounts vary by product, with label amounts often in the tens to low hundreds of milligrams per serving. Bioavailability is favorable for both nutrients in these foods when eaten with appropriate fats. Vitamin D is fat-soluble and absorbed better when eaten with a little fat. Preparation matters. Gentle cooking preserves omega-3s more than high-heat methods like deep frying, which can reduce some of their content, while vitamin D tends to remain stable through standard cooking. Safety and limits. For vitamin D, many adults should keep total daily intake under about 4,000 IU unless a clinician directs otherwise. For omega-3s, high daily intakes beyond roughly 3 grams of EPA plus DHA may raise bleeding risk for some people and can interact with certain medications. If you have concerns about your levels or risk factors, a clinician can offer testing or tailored guidance. Notes about when to consult. If you have limited sun exposure, are pregnant or breastfeeding, have kidney or liver conditions, or take medicines that affect fat absorption or clotting, it's sensible to check with a professional about your diet and any need for supplements. Decision guide. Yes. Include fatty fish regularly and use fortified foods to help cover vitamin D and omega-3 needs. No. If you cannot or prefer not to include these foods, discuss alternatives with a professional. How many servings are needed and how to prepare them to maintain their benefits. Vitamin D and omega-3 from food can contribute meaningfully to daily needs, but you have to plan practical serving patterns and cooking methods to keep the benefits intact. Fatty fish is the most potent natural source for both nutrients, with eggs and fortified foods playing supporting roles. For vitamin D, the amounts you get from a single serving vary a lot by food type, but a common reference is that a 3-ounce portion of salmon provides about 450 to 500 IU of vitamin D, and a cup of fortified milk gives roughly 100–130 IU. Eggs contribute around 40 IU per yolk, and UV-exposed mushrooms can add a modest amount. These numbers aren't exact for every product, but they illustrate why the totals from a typical daily plan need multiple sources to reach common targets. For omega-3s, fatty fish are the main natural source of EPA and DHA. A typical 3-ounce serving of salmon or sardines offers roughly 700–10 mg of combined EPA and DHA, depending on the fish and how it's raised or caught. If you eat 2 such servings spread across the week, you generally take in about 1 400–20 mg of EPA plus DHA in a week. That averages to roughly 200 to 300 milligrams per day. If you enjoy other fatty fish, like mackerel or trout, you can reach similar ranges with similar portions. Plant-based omega-3s, like flax seeds or chia, Supply ALA rather than EPA or DHA. The body can convert only a small fraction of ALA to EPA or DHA, so those sources alone don't reliably meet typical EPA or DHA targets. To maintain benefits, preparation matters. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, so a little healthy fat in the meal helps absorption. Cooking methods that use moderate heat, baking, grilling, or roasting, preserve the nutrients better than prolonged high-heat frying. Omega-3 fats are fragile to heat and light, so gentle cooking, shorter times, and avoiding deep frying with reused oil help protect the fatty acids. Pair omega-3 rich foods with a splash of olive oil, avocado, or a small amount of dairy in the same meal to boost absorption. When fish is served with vegetables or whole grains, the overall meal tends to be more satisfying and balanced, and the fat helps the fats you're counting on. Realistic serving guidance can help you plan a day or a week. For vitamin D, a plausible daily food plan might include 3-4 ounces of fatty fish most days of the week, roughly 450 to 500 IU per serving, plus fortified beverages or fortified cereals that deliver another 100-200 IU on a daily average, and a few eggs across the week. This can bring typical daily totals into about 500 to 800 IU, acknowledging that many people still fall short unless they use fortified foods or supplements, especially in winter. For omega-3s, aiming for 2 servings of fatty fish per week provides a meaningful chunk of EPA plus DHA. If you don't eat fish often, consider more frequent fish meals or include other seafood high in EPA or DHA, like sardines or herring, to raise your average daily intake toward the 250 to 500 milligrams range. Safety limits and practical cautions matter. The general upper limit for vitamin D is around 4,000 IU per day for adults. Staying within that range helps avoid excessive blood levels or calcium imbalance. Mercury and other contaminants are a concern with some fish choices, so vary selections and limit high mercury options, like certain large predator fish, especially for pregnant people and young children. For omega-3s, there isn't a strict food-based upper limit, but very high intakes from all sources can interact with medications that affect bleeding or anticoagulant therapy. Common sense, variety, and moderation are wise. If you have limited sun exposure, darker skin, older age, or concerns about absorption, you might need more attention to food choices or professional guidance. If you need to decide whether to rely on food alone or consider supplements, think through your everyday meals and your typical week. If your habit includes 2 fatty fish meals most weeks, regular fortified foods, and a varied diet that also includes small amounts of eggs or UV-exposed mushrooms, you are closer to meeting common targets from food. If your week is lighter on fish, or you have factors that raise vitamin D needs, a professional can help you decide whether a supplement is reasonable. And if you don't have a clear sense of your intake, you can use simple rough checks to estimate your average daily intake and adjust accordingly. Decision Guide. Can you meet vitamin D and omega-3 needs from food alone with a plan that includes fatty fish a couple of times per week, fortified foods, and a few other nutrient sources? Yes. No. If you answered no, consider adding more fortified items or discussing supplements with a professional. Yes. No. Combo techniques. Vitamin D plus fats, omega-3 plus antioxidants. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble nutrient, and absorption is enhanced when it's eaten with fat. In real foods, fatty fish such as salmon or sardines provide meaningful amounts, fortified dairy products add value, and eggs contribute a small amount. A typical 3 to 4 ounce portion of salmon can supply about 400 to 600 IU of vitamin D, depending on the fish and its diet. 2 cups of fortified milk may offer around 100 to 200 IU, while UV-exposed mushrooms vary widely but can be a reasonable plant-based source in a meal. Omega-3s from food come mainly as EPA and DHA in fish, and as ALA in plant foods like flax seeds and walnuts. A 3-ounce serving of fatty fish typically provides 600 to 1 mg of EPA plus DHA. Walnuts, flax seeds, and chia seeds bring ALA. For example, 1 ounce of walnuts delivers about 2.5 grams of ALA. Antioxidants live in colorful plants. Vitamin E in nuts and seeds helps protect fats from oxidation, and vitamin C and polyphenols in berries, citrus, and leafy greens support overall antioxidant defenses. Pairing these fats with antioxidant-rich foods can help maintain fat quality in the pantry and on the plate. The way you prepare and pair these foods matters for bioavailability. Cooking fish with a small amount of healthy fat, like olive oil, improves fat digestion and vitamin D absorption. Store omega-3 rich foods in dark, cool places, and consider antioxidant-rich ingredients to limit fat oxidation during storage or cooking. For mushrooms, Exposing them to UV light increases their vitamin D content before cooking, and heat won't erase all of that boost. On the other hand, excessive heat or long storage without protective antioxidants can gradually degrade some omega-3 fats, so consider fresher preparations and simple seasonings. Safety limits exist. High intake of vitamin D can lead to toxicity in extreme cases, and many guidelines set an upper limit around 40 IU per day for adults. Omega-3 fats from whole foods are generally safe, but very high intakes through supplements can affect bleeding or interact with certain medications. If you have a history of kidney stones, a thyroid condition, or are pregnant or nursing, consult a professional for personalized guidance. If you rely on fortified foods and aim to balance nutrients with natural combos, you'll have a practical path to better coverage. Decision guide. Yes, you regularly pair vitamin D foods with a fat source and you include omega-3 rich foods alongside antioxidant rich foods in meals. No, you rarely pair these nutrients with fats or antioxidants, or you rely only on supplements without leveraging food-based combos. When supplements are essential, general guidelines. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin your skin makes when sunlight hits it, and omega-3s are long-chain fatty acids found richly in certain fish and some fortified foods. In many people, especially those with limited sun or with diets that are lower in fatty fish, getting enough of these nutrients from food alone can be a challenge. General guidelines suggest considering supplements when sun exposure is limited, dietary intake remains consistently low, or you have factors that raise your risk of deficiency or heart-related concerns. The idea is to fill gaps rather than replace a balanced diet, and to tailor choices to your life and health goals. For vitamin D, a practical picture emerges from common foods. A typical 3-ounce portion of cooked salmon can deliver roughly 400 to 450 IU of vitamin D, depending on the species and preparation. Fortified dairy milk provides around 100-130 IU per cup, while fortified plant milks vary by brand but are in a similar ballpark. Egg yolks contribute a small amount, usually around 40 IU per yolk. Most adults aiming for 600 to 800 IU per day will rely on a mix of these foods plus some sun exposure, depending on location and skin type. The upper safety limit most guidelines set for daily intake is around 4,000 IU, to minimize the risk of excess. Heat and cooking methods do not destroy vitamin D in most foods, but absorption is helped when vitamin D is eaten with some fat because it is fat-soluble. For omega-3s, the story is about EPA and DHA, the long-chain forms linked to heart and brain benefits. Fatty fish such as salmon, sardines, and trout commonly provide roughly 600 to 1,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA per 3-ounce portion, though amounts vary by species and preparation. If you eat 2 servings of fatty fish per week, you can approach a daily average in the low hundreds of milligrams range. Plant sources deliver ALA, a different omega-3 form, but the conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA in the body is limited for most people, so relying on plant foods alone often falls short of the levels found in seafood. Algae-based supplements offer a direct DHA, and sometimes EPA, option for vegetarians and vegans. Typical daily guidance for healthy adults hovers around 250 to 500 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA, with higher amounts sometimes discussed for specific health goals under medical supervision. There is no universal UL for omega-3s in the same way as vitamin D, but very high doses can affect blood clotting and interact with certain medications. Bioavailability and preparation matter. Vitamin D absorption improves when you eat it with fat, so you don't want a completely fat-free meal when vitamin D-rich foods are eaten. Cooking fish gently and serving it with a bit of oil can help preserve and deliver the fats you want. Omega-3s, especially EPA and DHA from fish, are fairly stable when stored properly, but exposure to heat, light, and air can lead to some oxidation. Choosing fresh fish, proper storage, and reasonable cooking times helps. Plant-based omega-3s from flaxseed, chia, or walnuts provide ALA, which is not efficiently converted to EPA or DHA in all people, so relying mostly on plant sources can leave a gap unless you consume higher amounts or supplement with algae-derived DHA or EPA if appropriate for you. If you're deciding whether supplements are essential for you, safety and practical limits matter. People with very little sun exposure, darker skin, older age, malabsorption issues, or dietary restrictions that limit fish intake often benefit from supplementation after a discuss with a professional. Pregnant or breastfeeding individuals have specific needs and should consult a clinician to balance benefits with any potential risks. Supplements can help close the gap, especially when dietary options are limited or when blood levels are shown to be low, but they don't replace the value of a varied diet and smart food choices. Decision guide. Yes, no. Do you have limited sun exposure or live in a region with long winters? Yes or no. Do you eat 2 or fewer servings of fatty fish per week? Yes or no. Are you older? Or do you have health factors that increase your risk of deficiency or heart-related issues? Yes or no. Do you avoid fish for dietary reasons and rely on plant sources or supplements for omega-3s? Yes or no. If you answered yes to 2 or more of these questions, yes, consider discussing vitamin D and omega-3 supplements with a professional. If you answered no to all, no, you may not need supplements at this time. Vitamin D and omega-3 from food can cover a lot of what we need, but the mix of what you eat, how you cook it, and your own biology matters. Here's the gist you can take away. Vitamin D comes mainly from fatty fish, fortified foods, egg yolks, and a bit from some mushrooms. Omega-3s come from fatty fish and algae, with plant sources like flaxseed and chia giving ALA that some of us convert to a small amount of EPA or DHA. The big idea is that you can assemble a reasonable daily intake from real foods, but it takes planning and some trade-offs. Realistic servings and quick benchmarks help you picture it. For vitamin D, a 3-4 ounce serving of fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, or sardines often provides roughly 450-10 IU. Fortified foods, milk, yogurt, cereal, can add a few dozen to a couple hundred IU per serving, and egg yolks contribute about 40 IU each. So, a practical daily picture might be a fatty fish meal a few times a week plus fortified foods and some eggs to top things up. For omega-3s, 2 servings of fatty fish per week can yield a meaningful amount of EPA and DHA on balance, roughly a few hundred milligrams per day when averaged over the week. Plant sources like flax-seeds, chia, and walnuts supply ALA. The body does convert only a fraction of ALA to EPA or DHA, so those foods help, but they don't consistently deliver the same EPA or DHA boost as fish or algae. Bioavailability and preparation matter. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, so enjoying it with a little healthy fat can help absorption. Vitamin D in some foods is fairly stable to cooking, but lingering fat on the plate makes a difference. For omega-3s, fatty acids are sensitive to heat and light. Grilling or baking fish is fine, but excessive frying or oxidizing the oil can reduce quality. If you're using plant sources, grinding flaxseed or choosing ground meals helps your body access the fats, and pairing them with a little fat improves absorption. Safety and limits to flag. Vitamin D has a commonly cited upper limit around 40 IU per day for adults. With omega-3s, most people can safely consume up to a few grams per day of EPA plus DHA, but very high intakes can carry risks and aren't needed for most people. Mercury and other contaminants are a consideration with some fish choices, so variety and mindful selection, low mercury options, matter. If you've got kidney issues, are pregnant, or are considering high-dose supplements, those are good reasons to check in with a clinician or a registered dietitian before making big changes. If you're wondering when to seek guidance, the signal is simple. Low sun exposure, high needs due to health concerns, dietary restrictions, or plans to use supplements at higher than common amounts, these are good times to talk with a professional. They can help you tailor a plan that fits your lifestyle, screen for deficiencies if needed, and help you choose high-quality foods or supplements. Looking ahead, this channel will dive into practical kitchen help you can use right away. A simple 7-day meal plan, easy recipes that boost both vitamin D and omega-3, and a quick grocery list that keeps you within budget. We'll also test quick, friendly at-home checks to give you a clearer read on where you stand. If this felt useful, you know what to do next. Hit the like button, subscribe for more practical nutrition, and share your favorite vitamin D and omega-3 rich foods in the comments. First, I'll read your ideas and feature some reader picks in a future video. Decision guide. Can you meet your needs from food alone? Yes, with regular fatty fish and fortified foods plus plant sources, plus mindful preparation. No, consider talking to a professional about supplements or other options.